I look always at the time of crisis as an opportunity for the good entrepreneurs to stand out. My wife always jokes that I'll hopefully survive global warming. If you're on the outside, if you're an entrepreneur, want to be an entrepreneur, if you have an idea, there is no better time. You give any of us any amount of money, we will find a way to spend it. CEOs of Telcos came unannounced saying, I heard the best coffee is here. As the French say, taste cannot be debated.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of AI Leaders Interviews. My name is Michał Iwanowski, and I'm the VP of AI Advisory at DeepSense. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Rafał Łabęcki, our AI Engineering Manager. Hi, Rafał.
Hi, Michał. Great to be here.
And now to our special guest. Joining us today is Ned Taleb, a serial entrepreneur, founder and CEO of B-Yond and Reailize. Ned has built and scaled multiple ventures from ground up, often to billion-dollar outcomes, often in the midst of highly dynamic and even turbulent circumstances. And on top of all this, he's also an accomplished guitarist and opera singer. Wow, it's great to have you today, Ned.
Thank you, Michal, for this warm welcome. Thank you. And thank you, Rafał.
Okay, Ned. So first, let's talk about the beginnings of your entrepreneurial journey. On your LinkedIn profile, you mentioned building your first company in 2001 in a two-bedroom apartment in Virginia. Since then, you have built multiple companies through war, economic downturns, and other kinds of disruption like dynamic technological changes. My question is, what keeps you going? What gives you the perseverance to go through and continue doing amazing stuff?
Thank you, Michal. So first, I think, in general, it's a sense of purpose. But when I look much deeper inside at the psychology level, I think it's a sense of paranoia. As somebody who grew up in the Civil War, and you're always like in a, fight or flight mode, you're always in, survival mode, basically. For me, regardless of challenges, whenever I see a challenge, I see a downturn, I see a recession, a crisis, I get actually even like double or triple the energy. So that has been marked probably throughout my career, and probably also even inheriting that. When I talk to my 95-year-old dad, he's lived it all. Actually, he's lived the Civil War. He's lived in Lebanon. It was a colony. He lived the Second World War. I think it's quite a bit in my DNA. So my wife always jokes that, I'll hopefully survive global warming.
Yeah, that's likely to be true. Great. So let's maybe focus a bit on the financing aspect of all the stuff that you've built. So you've bootstrapped multiple companies to massive success. What's your advice for capital efficiency and considering alternatives like venture capital? What's your take after all the experiences that you have accumulated over the years?
This is one of my favorite topics because, going back to the sense of purpose for all the students I've had at IE University, what I call entrepreneurs in residence, because I mostly only teach at the Venture Lab in entrepreneurship at IE University, or people I've coached, along the way. I found a great sense of purpose. I mean, imagine, Michal, Rafal, I guess if you have, young kids or as they grow, the ability to tell them that, even if you can't raise money, you can get started and you can go far actually, even without funding. So every time I look at the room of, students or entrepreneurs in residence, I always tell them, some of you will be lucky enough to raise money, but for everybody else, please don't walk away. There are alternatives. And one of my favorite quotes in Bootstrapping is that bootstrapping is the purest form of entrepreneurship. I know it's a bit self-serving. Of course, I'm a bootstrapper, but I like to remind myself of this, even when I talk to people, that think about it. I mean, a lot of CEOs and founders, some of them have quite a bit of control over the destiny. A lot of them actually are pretty much working for VCs. They're working for boards. I would not say they are any freer than an executive working at our company, which actually leads, let's say, a business unit. Actually, they're probably under more pressure. So bootstrapping for me is the ability to start with minimal or no funding. And it's also a mindset because, bootstrapping is not forever. In my case, it's been 24 years. I still have never raised money. But for a lot of people, if you can delay the fundraise by a year or two or three, You're able to get much better valuation. You're able to give out much less of your company. Most important, which I think is a big deal, is to not to give control of your company too soon. So, and along the way, I've had a lot of people. That's my, probably what I'm most proud of. A lot of people that had business plan waiting for funding forever or in endless cycles to get started on that. So, I mean, analogies I give is you give any of us any amount of money, we will find a way to spend it. When you have very little funding, you think very differently. An example, I think this will resonate with a lot of companies, that do services or blended services and products. Because if you look at our group, it's a mix of products and services. Services, for example, is easier to bootstrap than a product company. In product company, typically you raise money.
Yeah, because you get the revenue sooner.
Exactly, much sooner, and you build actually custom. But custom may not be a very popular, term actually. I'd say in Silicon Valley or typical what they call unicorn founders or whatever. But actually, there is no limit to it. I look at it as more than custom. I look at it as actually customers funding your vision. If the vision is coming from them, yes, it is custom. But if the vision is coming from you, but the funding is from them, they're helping funding your company, and you are helping them, shine or basically leverage, let's say, whatever is AI or disruptive product or whatever. And honestly, like a lot of comparison is made between services and products as if they are world apart. That's not how I see things. I look at them a hair away, and all has to do with IP ownership. If at the last minute you negotiated to keep the IP, the product is yours. If the IP is theirs, yes, it is more of a custom. But even then you have built knowledge that can be reused. So I encourage people not to think only about the model of build it and they will come, which is let's fund the company, let's do a lot of R&D, let's build the product, hit the market, and hope that there's a fit for it. But rather that actually to start with the customer, to start with their problems, yes, to have some of your own vision and products or solutions to the problems, and to work with the customers to fund it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, excuse
Yeah,
me
please go
for,
ahead, Rafał.
for jumping in, but it's like early traction would be the good advice to bootstrap a successful company.
I would say so. If you think about it, even at the stage we're at, we're working, for example, with a client right now, and we have showed them a vision of how we can build, for example, um, our own platform in that's for a given service. And but if you think about it, by presenting it from business model as service, yes, it is first early traction because you have a client right away. Actually, you have a reference. The product market fit is solved for. You have users. You have and you have the funding. Like I can't think of a better way to start a product company. In this case, you're starting with a customer problem with their funding, and you have real use for it, and you have a great reference to take it from there. Now, your ability to resell somewhere else, you got to do your homework. I mean, in a lot of cases, it might end up being a one-off that you don't reuse, but that's up for you as a founder to check the market and understand that this is unusually a problem that exists, let's say in our case, at one telco in the US, probably exists at another telco in Europe.
Yeah, that's a great take. And how do you think all that you described has changed based on the recent rapid advancement in AI and technology? So I think it influenced the dilemmas and hardships of entrepreneurs a lot. So do you think it's easier or more difficult right now to bootstrap your own company?
I think I'm not sure if it's easier or harder, but I know for sure that actually is more needed than ever to bootstrap if you want. Because I think that the pace of change. I mean, the whole maybe if you want theory of Singularity University and people like Peter Diamandis and Ray Kurzweil and kind of like the accelerating pace of change and exponentially things are going faster. Sometimes maybe they're a bit ahead of themselves, but the theory holds true. And right now with AI, we're seeing it more than ever. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe in 2 or 5 years we see clearer. But right now, the disruption is happening at places we did not even expect. I remember, for example, with AI at the beginning, we are talking a lot that AI, automates a lot of the left brain, a lot of the analysis and whatever. Now we're starting to see, of course, not now, but we've been seeing now a lot of AI disruption in the creative part as well. So it is very hard to predict where AI goes from here and how fast the pace of change. So I would say more than ever, there is no point actually in burning somebody else's money or even your money to spin cycles to build a product that might take a year or two to build, where you don't know the state of things in a year or two. To start with an actual customers on a journey is a safer way and is a more sure way.
Yeah. So there is also an aspect of the team in all this. Like with the AI agents, there is this concept of a one-man army. So you don't need a big team because you can actually delegate a lot of stuff to AI agents. It's interesting to see and observe how it evolves. Personally, I'm not sure which way will it go, how much hype there is to it, and how much it actually changes the reality. But it's surely interesting to observe.
But you led me to think, Michal, that in some ways, I think that with AI, it might be easier to bootstrap. Because if you think about it, I call it the power of the few. I've been talking to my CTO, Patrick Debisky, actually about this, and he quoted actually, he gave me a quote from Churchill, about the power of few. But if you think about it, with AI, what is it doing? It's actually allowing a small group of people to do something that maybe needed a lot of people to do. So I think the disruption will happen in the very, very fat organizations. But for people that want to bootstrap, you don't need to have an army of people. And it's this whole concept also of, uh, LLMs and a lot of things that you can leverage actually to get started very quickly. I think, if you have an idea and you have good execution with a small number of people, you can put the product or service very quickly.
Okay, I think it's interesting to explore the area of tech a bit more. I think Rafał can go deeper in that direction.
Great, thank you. So Ned, you've been developing your tech companies for more than 2 decades. When did AI become a key technology in this journey?
For us, I mean, it started in 2016 when we launched B-Yond in Silicon Valley. I still remember the party we threw at the Riverside Hotel in Los Altos. I mean, that was 2016. But of course, I mean, things have changed a lot since then. And, I don't say it in a way to compliment ourselves that we've been at it for a long time. But of course, AI is not that new. There's people that have been at it even longer. But of course, we have seen a massive acceleration over the last 2 years in the adoption of AI. I think what we have seen initially that probably we're ahead of the market, which is not always a great thing, especially if you're a bootstrapper. And we have seen definitely a massive adoption accelerating over the last 18 months. So while 8 years ago it was not as much of a hype, I would say for us it was a natural evolution, moving at automation and software and big data analytics like 10, 15 years ago, and what people used to call BI and whatever. For a long time, AI was a natural evolution. But I'd say the hype has helped us probably where we've seen many more clients under the pressure to do something about AI. And the typical call I got in the last 6 or 12 or 18 months is, you know, I'm getting a call from my CEO and I got to show something. I got to tell the industry that there's something we're doing with AI that we have. That's what has helped us. But besides maybe LLM, putting LLM aside, probably things have not changed that much. But of course, the last 2 years, LLM has been, accelerated things quite a bit.
Yes, because as you said, if you started this journey with AI in 2016, so it's a pre-LLM era, right? So it's even pre-transformer era.
Of machine learning, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So this is about B-Yond, and what's your take on the whole telco industry? So how is the industry changing due to this increase in use of AI?
So, I mean, the telcos, I've been serving the telco industry for 24 years. So I've seen many waves, if you want. There was in the wave of maybe 2G, 3G. There was the wave of the iPhone, which gave it is definitely a second lifeline for many years, a massive growth. There was there was the era of building a lot of sites and growing. I mean, probably the last few years has been even pre AI, or let's say pre LLM. The wave has been really about efficiencies. I mean, the telcos have become too big for a lot of them. I was talking to the CFO of a tier one, said, for the last 8 years, we invested hundreds of billions and our cash flow is flat. In any other industry, I would be fired. So I think right now, for the first time, we're seeing, a true, genuine interest in breaking the old models and gaining efficiencies. And that can happen in a few ways. I mean, one, of course, in reducing their workforce, which is not a very popular, topic. Which, depending on the country you're in, like in Germany, might be harder, the employment laws, but we're seeing that increasingly accelerating, where a lot of them are publicly stating targets in the next year or two or five, how many people they need to go down. Another thing is, of course, also to get out of the lock of the OEMs with Open RAN being definitely the trend. And despite, of course, a lot of talk, there's still a lot of reliance on the old Ericsson, Nokia, Huawei, and some of the other markets. But that part hasn't changed as much. But at least there has been a true push towards this ORAN. And depending who you talk to, of course, they're at a different stage. I think also there's going to be the next one that I'm betting on myself. It may not be very popular with some of our partners because we do partner with the SIs, but I think a lot of the old SI model will break. That's personally, if they check even ChatGPT, they will tell you the SIs, revenues is still projected to grow for the next few years at a small percentage. I just don't see it. I think the SIs, of course, SIs are innovating, SIs are building stuff as well. Some of them have IP and products, but the model has been built primarily on outsourcing, primarily to Asia and India, hundreds of thousands of employees. And I think it will, AI will affect last very small, or smaller companies like us and other ones. I like specialty, call them specialty services and product companies. I think in the first hit the very large SIs, and that's what has not happened yet. For example, in Europe, the SIs have almost, for some telcos, complete control of the network, of the labs, of the technology, of the systems, everything. But that's probably the last one that has to. But there's also the vision of the telcos. I mean, the telcos have been talking now for years, the dream of autonomous network, zero touch, all these words. I mean, LLM in particular will make it a reality. I don't want to speculate when it will become a reality, but of course, I mean, there are experiments we're doing, even on the closed loop. Not many, I'll tell you right away. And there's always this massive disparity between how much truly is AI running in the network.
And is there a particular, sorry to interject, but I was just thinking if there's, speaking of all the possible areas where you could apply AI in telco, is there one that you believe in particular that will first demonstrate its value and impact? Because I guess many of them are pretty far away in terms of how soon they can bring real benefit, but there is a lot of hype and expectation. But where is the actual meat in your view? What will first demonstrate the real possibilities of AI in telco?
What we're working on is the hardest problem to solve. So I've seen AI, when the telcos talk about AI and we're using AI, generally, if you really, really ask, it's mostly customer care, like outside of the network, or it's in the network. You hear things. I mean, it's mostly like experiments. For example, I was talking to Telco. We built a few hundred models. I mean, how many of them are really working in the network? You get a very different answer. What we're working on is mostly anything that has to do with the true root cause of any incident. It's what the CTO of the largest telco in Europe told me last time. Please, Ned, just don't lecture me about the value of network stability. I will tell you how valuable is network stability to me. And that telco I will mention, but of course they had a major outage during the biggest event in Europe, over the last 2 years. So this is what we're trying to solve for: is the ability to detect incidents and know the true root cause. And now with the large language, also comparing that, correlating it to the 3GPP standards, and understanding the context of what's happening in your network. So networks have become more complex, and this whole topic is one that's Of course, we've been hearing for years about RCA, but right now the tools that are available are much different. And what we have built and continue to build is gaining a lot of traction, especially recently. So, just in the context of adoption, I mean, in 2024 was the first time we had adoption for that side of the things in Europe, and was the same year actually we end up working with all the 4 tier ones on that problem because it's a very, very common one still.
Yeah, it's aligned with our observations too. The customer service aspect is prevalent in many industries, in telco as well. Root cause analysis, this is something that we've been working on even before this AI hype right now. I think it continues to be the area where you quickly see the power of technology and the benefits. Okay, great to have your perspective on that.
Let me follow up on what you said about how telcos can benefit from AI. So basically, as I understand, is that the first area is the efficiency of telco as a company, and the second area is the benefit of having the improved security in the network. So it's like two benefits, right? And you also mentioned that the autonomy is something important. Is there any risk, or are there any areas that can be less secure due to this autonomy of AI in the network?
Definitely, but usually this is where Rafal, when we get to a stage where every telco looks at security different, or the appetite for risk is different between, depending on the geography, if they're a tier one or tier two or tier three, if they are actually a greenfield telco, or let's say a new entrant, fully virtualized versus whatever. So each one has a very different appetite for risk. That autonomy, if you want, and security, I mean, for me, becomes also a matter of not just technology, but also people and processes. And each one we talk to is a bit different. But I did want to add one. We talk about the efficiencies. There's another one for me is the missed opportunity, which is not efficiencies only. Because today, if you look at the telcos, it's mostly about, okay, their, OpEx in terms of people and also in the OpEx spend. For me, the other one is very, very important is also the time to market with new services. I mean, typically still we see telcos taking 12 to 18 months easily to introduce a new service. That can, for example, be solved a lot with AI, and that doesn't make you any less secure. Because, for example, we look at problems always from a pre-prod and production. In pre-production, when you're testing things, if you are able with ML to enhance the testing capacity and test 10 times, 100 times more, actually it's making things more secure. If you are able to uncover problems in the network much faster, it's making you more secure. So probably the whole topic about closed loop and AI, whatever, like makes some telcos a bit more nervous. But even before we get to that, I think AI can work in ways to make actually the networks more secure, faster testing, much more intense testing. And still, you go to telcos, I mean, a lot of them have very traditional labs and very traditional testing processes, actually. And that's not where the big opportunity for us is. We look at it more in production and operations, but this is a first problem to solve in a more contained environment.
Great. Somehow I feel that it relates to the bootstrapping that can be faster thanks to AI. It's like developing new product within the already existing organization can also be faster thanks to AI. So it's really great. Maybe let's come back to B-Yond and B-Yond products. Because the journey is quite interesting. The products evolved from BI tools like Agility to tools powered by LLMs like Telco GPT or Reailize. And how has this AI transformation changed the value you deliver to your clients?
Sure. Initially, the whole idea about Telco GPT was to have more like human conversations, if you want, with our system or our product Agility. But later, actually, it has evolved. I think with the use of LLM, it has allowed us actually to have more context, and that's very important. For example, as I mentioned, is the ability to look at an incident or a problem or identify the root cause, and then correlating it on 3GPP standards. That's, for example, it takes actually it enhances the value of the product. And to go back to our discussion about product and services, this is where it gets very interesting. Where agility is a product, but this actually is pushing us into knowledge as a service. And now we're working with two telcos in North America, one in Canada, one in the US, on that concept. Agility does its own part with root cause, but actually right now it's a knowledge as a service, and this will be built more with them if you want in a service like.
Great. Thanks for sharing. A last question in this tech thread. So, what is the benefit for companies that are looking to enhance their solutions products with AI? What's the benefit from working with specialized boutiques?
If you check where the telcos, where their big dollar spend, it used to be hardware, by the way. It used to be the base station was the big spend, and that's long gone. Today, you look at it, it's mostly people that they have. This is a massive OpEx. Telcos in the US have hundreds of thousands of employees, for example. Even in the UK, over 100,000. But that's changing fast. Second, it's the OEM relationship of love and hate, hijacked or not. And third is the SIs and the services. So and that for me is also it's a massive OpEx. So I think the telcos can benefit from specialized AI, call us consultancy firms like the likes of all of us here, because we look at the problem very in a very different way, and we have the least to lose. If I think everybody wants to talk right now about automation and AI, but you look at it, who's going to lose the most at it? Those will resist the most the change. I think small companies are the ones that actually can break the system, and in many different ways. And that for me is, I think the future also. I mean, if I want to talk even further, is a mix of AI agents, with products like agility, or AI agents with services with products. It's a mix of all of them. But there's massive efficiencies that are available to optimize in the next few years, and that's what keeps us going. Is this is going to happen?
Okay, great. So it sounds like efficiency, like a mix of cost efficiency, but also time to market, as I understand.
Time to market, absolutely. Also, making the networks more resilient. So you talk about security, I'll talk about resiliency in the broader context also, to again, network stability and the likes, as the networks are becoming more complex and more exposed, and that's opening up the network more.
Okay, thank you. So let's move to the next topic. It's actually a non-tech topic, leadership. So in one of your interviews, you reflected on leadership during the pandemic. So it was a disruption. But we are now in another turbulence, which is AI. And what would be your advice you can give to leaders preparing their teams or whole organizations for the new AI-driven future?
I think first, disruption opens a massive opportunity, and I can't think of a bigger disruption than AI right now. And you can always focus on the negatives. I do believe, by the way, that a lot of jobs will be eliminated by AI. This is we have to be honest with ourselves. But also, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, like AI agents, for example. Even for a company like us, we're trying to figure out, where the opportunity truly lies, actually, in here. But if you're on the outside, if you're an entrepreneur, want to be an entrepreneur, if you have an idea, there is no better time, because when times are good and everybody is stable in their position, there is no place for you. And a time of disruption is going to create amazing opportunities. And even further so, with AI, if you believe in this power of the few, then small companies can disrupt big ones. And bootstrapping is, I go back to the first question that made me think a lot by Michal about, is bootstrapping easier? I do think it's easier. And you have, with large language model, call them like platforms to leverage. I mean, it's a platform that can help you launch and build something on top. So this faster pace of disruption will be key. But we see it always. I mean, in every car crisis, there's an opportunity. We started in 2001 when there was a major, actually, there was called the dot-com bubble, and you know, large consulting firms and product companies were going out of business. It opened a space for us. We were called by clients that had something to replace, that had something that was no longer being supported, that had needs. Phenomenal opportunity to get started. This was also cheaper to hire people. So if you also believe the unfortunate part, if you believe that a lot of jobs will be wiped out, I think there'd be more people available also to work. But this, I personally think, to summarize, this is about the power of the few. This is about the time of disruption that will open up big opportunities, and this is the time where with a few people you can build something and have a very quick time to value. And one last thing, but we talk about crisis. Even if you look at COVID, we saw how many companies also that crisis, was a blessing to them. From Zoom, of course, from all the food delivery, like one that I was an angel investor in the early days, Cook Unity, which is now a unicorn, food delivery actually in the US.
That's a great thought. And maybe to continue on this, how companies react to disruption and change. Let's refer a bit, if you don't mind, to the works of your cousin, Nassim Nicholas. So the terms of fragility and anti-fragility. How do you think AI automation, that obviously can give you efficiency boost, but how does it relate to the fragility of the companies in terms of how they can react to unprecedented changes or all kinds of crises?
I was thinking about this recently, by the way. I mean, there's a case to be made that companies will be more fragile. There's a case to be made that companies will be less fragile. Um, I tend to believe that if you can consider my cousin Nassim Nicholas Taleb with his concept about anti-fragility or whatever, but I would bet on the world will be more fragile. But actually, that's going to open up more opportunities. I think the biggest they're going to be the most fragile, by the way. And we go back to our theory, the power of the few. But I think that this is where the opportunity lies: is this fragility in the ecosystem is going to open up a lot of opportunities. The likes that we have seen, for example, when iPhone disrupted the market, but opened up a wave of applications development for a while.
Yeah, that's aligned with my view on this, like squeezing efficiency by various technological means most often increases the fragility. But when you see how things break in relation to some unprecedented crisis, there's a lot of new opportunities being born, and this is good. So uh, recent time has been very interesting to observe, and I think we're also heading in an interesting direction right now on many levels. Okay, so Ned, let's maybe circle back to something that we opened up with. Are there any particular pieces of advice or tips that you would like to share or give to young entrepreneurs today? How they should approach the challenges that they will face to build great stuff?
Sure. I mean, I think first talking to a lot of young people, I'm blessed. I mean, my passion for teaching actually or coaching is relatively new. It's maybe 3 to 5 years old. But talking to a lot of young people, always any change generates different effects in people. Some people are crippled by the changes, by the fear, by the anxiety. A lot of young folks ask me saying that I'm specializing in this, and will my industry or will my line of specialty be out? I would say, I mean, first we go back to Darwin. The most adaptable species is the one that will last the longest. Adaptability is the key probably in AI. You know, uh, Talk by the way to some of the top entrepreneurs and billionaires and unicorn founders. I always ask the same question selfishly for my kids and whatever. I think the answer is nobody knows for sure. So I think being adaptable is very important. Watching the dynamics is very important because I think it's going to be a time of disruption that will open up a lot of opportunities. There are things, that are, of course, not to pick and choose, like, using AI to your advantage. I think people will be left behind. So for me, the AI is not like we all have to be data scientists. It's just that you have to know the tools that are available to get you to go faster. Um, and we talk also about bootstrapping being easier. I think this will be the one thing I will leave out of this interview, still thinking about it, actually, even in when I talk to the next group of people, that I think bootstrapping will be easier. The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced. And that's going to be, it could lead to a wave of entrepreneurship. I think, if you see in every wave, for example, there was a wave of the 2000 that opened up a lot the e-com companies, let's call the 99 bubble. And then after that, there was a dot-com crash and everybody forgot about all the e-commerce. And then slowly they creeped on us. And now look at all of them, they became giants, from Amazon, of course, and eBay and everybody. There was another wave, I think, with the iPhone, where it opened up a way for many years of applications development, still available. But of course, at the beginning, there were more opportunities to build anything into an app. I think right now with AI and the use of AI and LLM is going to, and the disruption of the very big players possibly, is going to open up a lot of opportunities for young people. But I think we need more entrepreneurs. We need more people that are, see the good in what can happen and believe in the disruption and can capitalize on it.
Yeah, I definitely see that the barrier of entry for entrepreneurs has been lowered by the advancements in AI. Perhaps this boom in entrepreneurship that's possibly already happening today might make it more difficult to stick out from the crowd for in order to be successful. But I guess when you look at it in aggregate on all the innovation that will happen, this is obviously a good thing, because there will be a lot of trying, a lot of failing, but also a lot of learning. So I guess this puts us in a good perspective
Michal,
as people.
crisis is for entrepreneurs to benefit from. If you look at the last 5 years, it has benefit for the most part lucky people. I mean, people that invested in big tech, stocks went flying, up until recently, of course. People that invested in crypto and knew nothing about crypto, they made a lot of money. People that invested in real estate, I mean, like, Florida, whatever, they went up a lot. When there's a crisis, everything goes down. But, people who can create value out of something, this is, I look always at the time of crisis as an opportunity for the good entrepreneurs to stand out.
Yeah, chaos is a ladder, like they said in Game of Thrones. Okay, so Ned, let's end with a slightly different note. So I've read that you are launching your own coffee line this year, and that AI is somehow involved in that too. Can you please tell us a few words about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Coffee started, by the way, as a passion. I mean, I was in Silicon Valley when Third Wave was born out of Blue Bottle, and I used to, stand in line at 6:20 before they opened at 7 a.m. That's how popular it was. It was on 66 Main Street. The first wave was more the Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's. Second wave was Starbucks, and third wave was Blue Bottle. And maybe there was not like a major wave like that since now they say we're at the fourth wave. But it was a passion, and of course, I played with a lot of different technologies of the most advanced espresso machines, but also especially grinders. Grinders are actually, they have very interesting technologies. So that's been primarily, and then I started getting into actual roasting, and bought the best roaster maybe in the world from California called Loring, and start roasting. Now, if you think about, if you take an analogy with health, in health you have a lot of metrics, and you correlate that, especially now in functional medicine and in whatever, to figure out what's going on with you. In coffee, I mean, there are a lot of variables too, maybe not as much as health, of course, but a lot of variables that can affect the end product, from the farm, the processing, the roasting, the water pressure, the water mineralization, you name it. Everything is a variable. Anything can affect it. So the idea is, It's a typical actually machine learning, model, but the idea is to profile, what you like, and to be able to basically correlate it to a variety of these things. And you might actually have more than one profile. Maybe, for example, I like my coffee in the morning different than in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's what I would expect to for several patterns to emerge for people to pick from. Because, like, I'm not an expert in coffee, but you have different types of beans that have different levels of acidity versus bitterness. So I know a bit about my preference, but I guess you cannot really dream to create one single perfect coffee that will suit all tastes of people, right? You need to have a portfolio, so to say.
Absolutely, as the French say, taste cannot be debated. And the idea is that I do that. I've been doing this manually. I have people over, or in Barcelona, there was 109,000 people who had the best coffee bars. CEOs of telcos came unannounced saying, "I heard the best coffee is here." But I had to ask a couple of questions before serving them coffee. Do you like it floral? Do you like it strong? Do you mind acidity, but a very complex after flavor, whatever? So but today, almost all of the roasters I know, and I've ordered maybe from the top 50 in the world, and they might tell you we're going to custom roast for you. They might tell you that this is dark or medium, but very few are asking feedback. And coming to this problem from a technology background, I want to make sure that there's the right way to capture feedback that you can custom roast for you and also even custom prepare for you in the future. And that leads me to probably the only unicorn market I personally see, and I'm giving out too much maybe here, but is the hotels, is the B2B2C. Because in hotels, just like when you go to a high-end hotel and they might tell you, Mr. Ivanovsky, I know you like your pillow soft and I know you like king size bed. They might already know your profile about how you like your.
You nailed it. Okay. Okay, that's amazing and very interesting. Thank you, Ned. So thank you for participating in our AI interviews part today. We had great fun talking to you. I hope you had fun too.
I always
Thank you, Rafał,
great,
for
great stimulating questions, and thank you, Michal and Rifal.
that's great to
Thank
hear.
you.
Thank you, Rafał, for co-hosting this with me. This was Ned Taleb, founder and CEO of B-Yond and Reailize. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and see you next time on AI Leaders Interviews.